Shalom, giving all praises to Yahweh Bahasham Yahweh Shai, double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone, and Shalom to you, hopefully elect. Just through the Spirit, I came across this video. Going into the Weimar Republic and the hyperinflation period that was going on during that time in Germany. And like I said, it's just through the Spirit, because I came across this video, and to me, they this guy, gave some more insight, some more details dealing with the Weimar Republic and when they were facing that hyperinflation. All right, when they were going through that hyperinflation, and going into how bad it was, like I said, just give some more detailed examples. All right, which, like I said, for me, it painted a more broader picture of what we're going to start seeing here in America, Lord willing, real soon. Because these different events that happen throughout time and in history, you just got to wonder, you got to ask yourself, because these were some pretty serious times. And I'm talking about, as I always say, every so-called bad thing that happened from the time that the world began up until this point now, it's all combined. It's not going to be as nearly as bad. It's going to be as like a walk. It's going to be like a day in Disneyland compared to the time that we're getting ready to come into, this time of Jacob's trouble, the worst time that the world has ever seen. So like I said, if you had these different periods throughout time in history where things were so bad, right? And it's nothing compared to what's getting ready to happen, specifically and especially here in America, man. It just makes you wonder, And as I always say, because our words will never do justice, all right? And that's why people have to see it. That's why people have to go through it. They have to feel it personally. All right, but nevertheless, again, through the Spirit, just like I said, watching this video, it gave me personally a more broader picture of what we're going to start seeing real soon here in America, because hyperinflation is coming to America. All right. But with that being said, I'm just going to go ahead and play this video. I do have it speeded up, so if the video's going kind of fast, that's why. So without further ado,
we're going to begin a two-part series on hyperinflation, looking at some of the history of it, and then in the second portion, we're going to look at ways that we can avoid suffering some of the worst results of hyperinflation. Hey everybody, Chad Cruiser here with Health and Homestead. We're going to start with the most notorious history of hyperinflation, and that was the Weimar Republic. So during World War I, Germany went into various European countries. They stole all kinds of things like their art, they stole their gold, various things. They brought these things back to Germany. Finally, the Allied powers ganged up, they came back, and they put a stop to this, and they won the war, and then they wanted to punish Germany for their involvement in this war, and so Germany signed the Treaty of Versailles, and what happened was they had to pay back nearly $270 billion in today's currency anyway, of gold-backed marks. And so you can imagine how difficult this was for Germany to have to deal with. Now, the basic idea was they were trying to spur on the economy in Europe again. And so what happened was, as they were shipping over gold, but people just weren't using it all that much. They were saving it because of the difficult times they were in. And finally, they got another idea. The idea was that they would take a gold-backed currency, and instead of sending gold over to these other countries, they would just send these marks. And instead of people just saving it up, then they began to spend it, and they began to spur on the economy. So they were shipping these gold-backed marks to these various countries. And then they began to think, after a couple of years, hey, nobody would really know if this money wasn't backed by gold. So what if we took it off the gold standard and just shipped out paper money to these these people, they wouldn't know anyway. And so that's what they did. And before World War I, it was about 4 Reichsmarks to the American dollar at the time. So let's just say $1 for 1 chicken, well, it would be 4 Reichsmark for a chicken, just to give an idea of what it might be like. But very rapidly, because they were printing more money, it went from 4 marks to the dollar to 9 marks to the dollar. And by the time we get to July of 1919, it was 14 marks to the dollar. So the marks are becoming worth less and less over time. So the economists came up with a great idea. They realized, hey, if they're devaluing our currency by 60%, because it kept going down, 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 they thought, well, if they devalue it by that much, we'll just print that much more. And that's what they ended up doing. And by January of 1920, it was now 65 Reichsmarks.
And you see, I'm going to run that back, but because he touches on this, and like he just mentioned, you know, basically, because like I said, at this point, America, first and foremost, because just to fast forward real quick, when it comes to the whole agenda of the top wicked elites, which is to have everyone, because this is not going to be just, this isn't some agenda that is going to be just specifically for America. No, the top wicked elites, all right, the Job 9:24s, when it comes to that Revelation 13, 16, and 17, this is something that they want to implement worldwide. All right, it's going to be a worldwide thing. But with that being said, you know, it's going to be a thing of when it gets this bad, because I mentioned this in the video I did the other day about how, you know, being in the belly of the beast, you don't really, when you're in the belly of the beast, and that's something I got from the head brother Nahoya a couple of weeks ago, you know, and it made perfect sense in reference to the being in the belly of the beast. The head brother Nahoya from the camp, because when you're in the belly of the beast, you know, when you're in Babylon, all right, because things are somewhat intact, society is still somewhat intact, you know, where the scriptures talk about the cool of the day, right, while it is yet day, right, like I said, while society is still somewhat intact, and, you know, it's all good for the most part, right? But when you leave America, man, all hell is breaking loose. All hell is breaking loose worldwide. You know? You see, man? But again, because when these things do come, because it's not a matter of if, it's just a matter of when, it's going to hit America the worst. All right? Because you already have a lot of places, a lot of countries experiencing hyperinflation. One of the most notable being Nigeria. All right. You know, last time I checked, a stick of toothpaste was like $50, 60, $70. You see, and it's gonna get worse. It's just, again, like I said, a lot of things are going on in a lot of other places, but when it comes to America, it's gonna hit this place hard, because these people, they're used to being comfortable. All right, they're used to living deliciously and just, you know, no care, right? You know, everyone's used to being comfortable, right? But as soon as you take those comforts away, man, and that's why more and more makes sense going into how the scriptures, like the scriptures talk about there being neighbor against neighbor. People are going, man, it's going to be a dog eat dog world out here for real. Because these people, they're not used to being uncomfortable. They're not used to it. You see, Lord willing, on the other hand, the hopeful elect, those of us of the hopeful elect, man, we're used to being uncomfortable, you know. The Lord keeps us on a tightrope. It's always one thing after another. It's just like we can't get a break. But it's necessary, because, hey, when shit hits the fan, hey, for the most part, it's not going to be new to us. It's not going to be unfamiliar territory for us, because we're used to catching hell. We're used to being uncomfortable. We're used to having a, you know, and the Lord did that. he has it like that on purpose. So when this shit does hit the fan, hey, we're Lord willing, we're gonna be ready to go. You see, because we can't wait for this shit to go down now. Because it's ultimately gonna come down to faith. When societies are cut off, and when it gets to that point, man, where it's just when the prophecies start flourishing like an almond tree, pursuant to Ecclesiastes 12. All right, and it's the real deal. We don't know how we don't know where our next meal is going to come from. We don't know what we're going to do. We don't know. But at this point, it's just, and I always say, because I'd rather just, and it's easier said than done, but this is why we have to get built up to that point. Because at this point, man, it's just like, I'd rather just take my chances with Yahweh Shemal Shai, whether it be in the woods, a concentration camp, whatever, man. I'd rather just take my chances because, putting your trust in Esau, Edom, and the system, man, it's just, when has it ever done us any good, right? But going on.
Currency by 60% because it kept going down, down, down. They thought, well, if they devalue it by that much, we'll just print that much more. And that's what they ended up doing.
And that's what I wanted to mention, all right, because we see this, we saw this happen back in 2020, 2021, parts of 2022. All the money printing, because as I was saying, America is so far in debt, man. America has a debt that they're never going to be able to pay off, all right? And at this point, they're just kicking the can down the road. They're just putting a Band-Aid on a massive wound, all right? The wound that can't be healed, right? You see, but you see, the thing is with these elites, man, they have to have it to where the foundation is so broken, all right, that when they usher in this new system, then hey, and I believe, and that's the spirit, because I believe he mentioned something about how, let me not jump the gun. I'm gonna go ahead and play this on.
And by January of 1920, it was now 65 Reichsmarks to the dollar. So now at this point, the people were really beginning to feel the inflation. But the politicians, they themselves began to feel it also. So they came up with a great idea. They signed legislation so that every time there was a devaluation of the currency, they would get a raise. So they got to the point where they didn't have to worry about inflation at all. But keep in mind, that was only for the politicians. By January of 1922.
So real quick, because he mentioned that, and like I said, Salakia, because this is almost a 10-minute video and I want to get through it. I'm going to play that part back just in case you didn't hear it. Like I said, I have to sped up, so just pay attention real closely. I'm going to play that part back again.
Of the currency, they would get a raise. So they got to the point where they didn't. So they came up with a great idea. They signed legislation so that every time there was a devaluation of the currency, they would get a raise. So they got to the point where they didn't have to worry about inflation at all. But keep in mind, that was only for the politicians.
So you see, and this is why, pursuing this second Edges 15, man, people are going to take matters into their own hands, and they're going to start saying to hell with these governors, these politicians, these people that are set up to look over and look after the poor. These people that are supposed to speak on the behalf of, they're supposed to speak on the behalf of the needy, right? And this is why you have a lot of protests, uproars, riots, right? Because people are waking up to the fact that these people set up these puppets. They're not for they're not speaking on the behalf of the people. They're really speaking on, doing the agendas, playing out the agendas of the wicked elites. People are starting to find that out. So it's eventually going to escalate, and more escalation, which is going to lead to more escalation. And eventually we're going to start seeing more and more of these people coming after their politicians, their governors, hell, even mayors, being held for ransack, assassinations, all that, the whole 9 yards. And that's pursuing the second Edges 15. Because these people, like you said, I'm going to get this real quick in Revelation 13. All right, because, what do we see ever since this world crisis started back in 2020? The rich get richer, the poor getting poorer. And if you're in that middle class, all right, well, you're either going to fall into the category of the rich, or you're going to fall into the category of the poor. Like I said, ever since this world crisis started back in 2020, we've seen guys like Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, Bill Gates getting richer and richer. Millionaires becoming multimillionaires, billionaires becoming multi-billionaires, right? millionaires becoming billionaires, right? Real quick, Revelation 13 and verse 16. And he causeth all, both small and great, rich and poor. So that's the point right there. It said rich and poor. All right. There's no middle class. There's no in between. You're either going to fall into one of two categories, the rich or the poor. And again, this is why, like I said, we're going to start seeing more and more 2 Edges 15. All right. More and more Egyptian against Egyptian. So on and so forth. So playing on.
In January of 1922, the inflation had gone up to 190 Reichsmarks to the dollar. Now, at some point, they came up with an ingenious device that was on the cash registers. And what that was they began to realize inflation was going up so rapidly, they would put a device on the cash register that has been called the multiplier. That would, every time you would hear a click, it would raise the price of what was in your card by 10%. Now, by July of 1922, it came to 460 Reichsmarks to the dollar. And when you're in the grocery store, every 30 seconds, you would hear a click on that cash register. And that means everything you put in your cart went up by 10%. You can imagine this began to create a real buying frenzy. And you can see why serious inflation can be very detrimental to people's mental health, because people begin to constantly think about money because it begins to devalue over and over and over. By January of 1923, the price had now gone to 8,000 Reichsmarks to the dollar. And this really changed things in the factories. So the workers in the factories realized, hey, we can't get paid every 2 weeks. The cost is just skyrocketing. So they made an agreement that they would get paid every week. And you can imagine that was helpful, but it wasn't good enough because the inflation was going up so rapidly. So finally they made an agreement that they would get paid every single day. But like I said, it's going up every 30 seconds, 10%. Finally they made a contract that they would get paid every single hour. And I've heard the story go that they would take every single hour of that money, they would run outside.
So this is what sparked me to do this. All right. Because again, this happened back then. Well, I can speculating through the spirit. Can only imagine what's going to take place now, because again, I'm gonna rewind it back, but pay attention to what he said, right? And this is more in-depth detail on what took place during the Weimar Republic. All right. So again, I'm gonna rewind it back.
I said it's going up every 30 seconds, 10%. Finally, they made a contract that they would get paid every single hour, and every single day. They made an agreement that they would get paid every week. And you can imagine that was helpful, but it wasn't good enough because the inflation was going up so rapidly. So finally they made an agreement that they would get paid every single day. But like I said, it's going up every 30 seconds, 10%. Finally they made a contract that they would get paid every single hour. And I've heard the story go that they would take every single hour of that money, they would run outside of the factory or the place that they were working, and they would give that money to their wife or whoever it was, and they would rush to the store to buy something before the prices went up. I mean, they were still going up on the way, obviously, at this point, but you can imagine the frenzied living experience that people must have been going through at the time. This began to create a serious problem for money printing.
So you see that? This was going on during the Weimar Republic. It got so bad that 2 weeks worth of pay, no, that's not good enough. And like I said, the agreement came that, hey, we need to get paid every week. Well, that wasn't good enough. So the agreement came to, hey, we need to get paid every day. That wasn't good enough. So it got down to a point where it was so bad that, hey, we need to get paid every hour. Right? And I'm sure that wasn't good enough either, but again, during this time, hey, getting paid on the hour, it was so bad during this time that, hey, people they get paid on the hour, every hour, and as soon as they got paid, it would be a spending frenzy because the inflation, the hyperinflation was so bad. Again, like you mentioned earlier, every 30 seconds, it was like the price of things were going up. So with that being said, there was a spending frenzy, all right, the shopping frenzy. Everyone was trying to rush to, get what they needed. Everyone was shopping and rushing and shopping to get what they needed before the price of everything goes up, right? And it reminded me of this, Revelation chapter 6. Revelation chapter 6. Bear with me. Revelation 6 and 5. And when he had opened the third seal, I heard the third beast say, "Come and see." And I beheld, and lo, a black horse. And he that sat on him had a pair of balances in his hand. And I heard a voice in the midst. Because you see, this verse 5, going into this black horse and, those pair of balances, slavery. All right. Basically, you could tie it to slavery. Because that's what ultimately, Esau, he's trying to make everyone digital slaves. All right. And he's trying to get everyone tied into the system So that way, hey, did the video not too long ago going into the MOTB, the ESGs, the CBDCs. Esau, he's going to be with the track trace. If you say something that goes against the government, they're going to be able to basically lock you out the system. You won't be able to, pursuant to the prophecy in Revelation 13 that I read earlier, you won't be able to buy or sell. You see, so it's digital slavery, all right? From physical shackles to, so to say, digital shackles, man. You know, digital shackles, all right? You see, man? So, verse 6, Revelation 6:6. And I heard a voice in the midst of the four beasts say, a measure of wheat for a penny, and 3 measures of barley for a penny. And see thou hurt not the oil and wine. Now, understand that, you know, this John the Revelator, he was speaking these things during the Roman Empire. So at that time, all right, a penny going into the denarios, when you look it up, all right, for a soldier at that time, you know, the denarios was a day's wage. You know, it was what you made in that day, a day's worth of work. You see, when you go into that penny, all right. I'm gonna read that in the NLT real quick. In Revelation 66 in the NLT says, and I heard a voice from among the 4 living beasts saying, a loaf of wheat bread, slakia, a loaf of wheat bread, or 3 loaves of barley. And again, because it said a loaf of wheat bread, all right, or 3 loaves of barley. You see, now, I mean, you could just look this up on your own. Now, a loaf of bread, that's self-explanatory, but 3 loaves of barley, again, look that up on your own, because that's not a lot. But that's how bad it was back then. That's how bad it's been throughout different times in history. As a matter of fact, let me go to this real quick and I'm gonna come back. Because what we've seen, if you're paying attention of what's been going on out there in Nigeria, if you know the history about the Weimar Republic, which this is what I'm touching on, you know, in this video right now. But there's been different times in history where you had these events of hyperinflation, right? And I'm about to get this in Second Kings chapter 6, because this is what Esau's gonna do. Now, no new thing under the sun, man. You know, this is what Esau's about to do now. He's about to starve these people to a point where they just say, man, fuck it, and you know, they're gonna get down with the program. Because like I said, in America, man, you know, these people, they can't go a few hours, if that, without eating something, man. You know, like I quoted, hey, these people that used to live in luxury, being comfortable, just, you know. But that's what Esau's gonna. That's what he's gonna. That's where he's going to apply the pressure. That's what he's gonna, you know, play on. All right. When you basically strip people's ability to survive, to live, all right, because things are going to get so expensive, it's going to be impossible to survive, man. It's going to get that bad. Like, man, read Leviticus 26, man. It talks about how 10 women to 1 oven. People, scriptures talk about people drinking their water, eating their bread with carefulness, and you know, it's food rationings, right? But going back to 2 Kings 6:24, and it came to pass after this that Benadad, king of Syria, gathered all his hosts and went up and besieged Samaria. And that's what Esau's doing, that trench. All right. He's pushing everyone into a corner. All right. It says, and there was a great famine in Samaria. And I do believe this was a northern kingdom, if I'm not mistaken. I do believe this was a northern kingdom. But nevertheless, you read the different accounts of what happened to northern kingdom and southern kingdom separately. But nevertheless, it's going to happen to all Israel. All right, all 12 tribes. Everyone outside of the elect, all Israelites outside of the elect. So in verse 25 it says, "And there was a great famine in Samaria, and behold, they besieged it until an ass's head was sold for 80 pieces of silver." And the head of an animal, just to show you how, just to paint a little perspective for you. The animal of a head doesn't have much meat on it. It doesn't have much meat on it. It's mostly bone, right? But the famine at this time was so bad that an ass's head was sold for 80 pieces of silver, and that's a lot of money. That's a lot of money. 4 pieces of silver, man, for an ass's head, right? That's a lot of money. That's a lot of shekels. It says, "In the 4th part of a cab of dove's dung for 5 pieces of silver." So this should show you how a little glimpse of how bad it was, right? Hey, basically bird shit was sold for 5 pieces of silver, man. You see, hyperinflation. That's basically what this was. That's how bad it got at this time. It was even worse during the siege of Jerusalem, right? Where people were, it was so bad that people were eating the leather off their basically their sandals, right? It was so bad. That's not even to mention the different accounts of cannibalism, which I believe when you read in this chapter, when you read on down, it goes into an account of cannibalism. You had the 2 women, the woman on the wall, she was crying, right? Because she basically gave her son to eat, right? Made an agreement with another woman. Hey, we'll eat my son today, but tomorrow we're going to eat your son, right? You can read that when I believe it's in this chapter. You read on down. All right, that's how bad it was, and that's how it's going to get even worse. Cannibalism is coming back in a major way. All right, it's coming back in a major way, because people are going to eat anything that they can find, anything that they can get their hands on, man. That's how bad it's going to get, But nevertheless, that was just an example of hyperinflation, right? Going back to, because an ass's head, man, for 4 pieces of silver, bird shit for 5 pieces of silver. That's hyperinflation. That's hyperinflation. You paying for shit. You're paying for bird shit, man. That's overpriced. You're paying overpriced for bird shit, for bird dung, man. That's hyperinflation. Overpriced bird shit. That's how bad it was. That's how bad it got. How much more the days that we're coming into, right? Going back to Revelation 6, verse 6 again. "And I heard a voice in the midst of the 4 beasts say, a measure of wheat for a penny, and 3 measures of barley for a penny. And see thou hurt not the oil and wine." So again, in the NLT it says, "I heard a voice from among the 4 living beings say, a loaf of wheat for 3 loaves of barley." Slakia, a loaf of wheat bread or 3 loaves of barley will cost a day's pay. So you see, and that's what it reminded me of when he gave this example of how bad it was during that time. It was so bad that 2 weeks went from 1 week. All right, a week's pay went from a day's pay. A day's pay, it was so bad that people had to get paid on an hour, and they had to rush out to go get what they needed because the prices were going up every 30 seconds, right? You see, a day's worth of wages, man, is for a loaf of bread, right? For 3 loaves of barley. That's, again, look it up. A loaf of bread, and that's what we've been saying. Don't be surprised. One day we're gonna wake up, and a gallon of milk is gonna run you $120, and that's probably being modest. That's probably being nice, because it's gonna get so bad. A loaf of bread is probably gonna run you $10,000, man. $50,000, $1,000,000, man, for a gallon of milk. That's how devalued the dollar's gonna be. That's how worthless the money's gonna be in the days to come. Right? A day's worth of wages, man. It's barely gonna get you by. And again, the dollar's gonna be so devalued, right? Because what's in the talks in the news right now? Hey, the BRICS and all these countries applying to join the BRICS. All right, all those treasury bonds, hey, all that. Hey, eventually these nations, they're going to stop buying America's debt, and they're going to send that shit right back over here. And that's when we're going to see hyperinflation. That's when we're going to start seeing this hyperinflation, man, and just everything going up. You see? So I'm going to play this out some more.
They got to the point where the most important job in the country, the most productive work in the country, was printing paper to produce all of these bills that were running. They had something like 16 mills running 24 hours a day, just printing off money. But then they got to the point where they were printing it so fast, there just wasn't enough time to print on both sides. And then once it was at least 10,000 marks to the dollar, it was no longer worth totally printing these, and so they just added stamps on top of the old bills. Now, by August of 1923, it was at 4.6 million marks to the dollar. From what I understand, it was in that month that, you see, American economists from Harvard, I think there were 5 of them, who had been working to try to get the economy stimulated in Europe and helping out Germany to pay back their reparations. They basically said, okay, we're gonna head back home. You guys can take it from here. There wasn't much hope for the German economy at this point. By September of 1923, the price had gone up to 100 million to the dollar, and every 15 seconds, this is hard to believe, but every 15 seconds, the price would go up by 100%. I mean, you can understand why this is called hyperinflation. And by October of 1923, it was 25 billion Reichsmarks to the dollar, and it might be hard to believe that it could be inflating this bad. Finally, by November of 1923, the Reichsmark had gone from 4.2 trillion marks to the dollar. And at this point, it was worth nothing. It got to the point where it was totally useless. There was no point even using it. You probably heard the old story of somebody carrying down the road a wheelbarrow filled with Reichsmarks, and the wheelbarrow was worth more money than the cash that was filling that wheelbarrow. Kids would use it to play with. People started using it as scrap paper. It became utterly worthless. And this is what ends up happening at the end of a hyperinflationary period, as the idea goes that money becomes nothing, or as we read in that passage, it says money came to naught. I don't think I was talking about Germany. I think that is a future event there. This is one of the things that led to Hitler coming to power, because Germany's economy in that passage.
Just for edification's sake, let me get that real quick in Revelation 18, because these guys obviously they don't know what they're talking about when it comes to the scriptures. So Revelation 18, verse 17, it says, Revelation 18:17, for in 1 hour so great riches is come to naught, and every shipmaster and all the company in ships and sailors, and as many as trade by sea, stood afar off. Verse 18, and cried when they saw the smoke of her burning, saying, what city is like unto this great city? So, because you see, America is basically one of the top consuming nations. All right. All these countries that have benefited, made all this money off America, right? Because you see, again, America, the fact that it was established off of free labor, right? All those years, because it's like you go to a beach. I always use the example of going to the beach. Going to the beach, and it might take you 6 hours to make this crazy, beautiful sandcastle, right? But hey, in a moment, all those hours that you put in to make the sandcastle, it can be done. It can, just like that, it can be over. All right, and that's like unto America. All these years, these hundreds of years, America has been in power. All right, in one moment, in 1 hour, it's going to come to naught. That sudden destruction that the scriptures emphasize, that Yahweh Shema Shah emphasizes, that sudden destruction. You see? But yeah, even more so, hey, pretty soon, hey, like I said, one day we're going to wake up. Don't be surprised. Been saying it. Don't be surprised. One day you wake up, you go to the store, and a gallon of milk, because like you just mentioned, man, and this was back then. How much more now? So that's why I say, don't be surprised. Waking up one day, you go to the store just to get a gallon of milk, and that shit runs you $1 million. A gallon of milk, $1 million. A loaf of bread, $2 million. Don't be surprised, because that's how bad it's going to get. The dollar's going to be so devalued, it's going to be so worthless. And like he mentioned, because this is where you see the pictures, you can look it up. The Weimar Republic, where people carrying barrels of money, where the barrel itself was worth more than the money that they were carrying it in, man. Right? And you would think carrying all that money, you might be buying a car or something, but no, you're just going to get a loaf of bread. You're just going to get a box of cereal or some shit, man. Something simple. Hell, a pack of ketchup. All that money just for a pack of ketchup. A bottle of ketchup or some shit. That's how bad it's going to get out here. That's how serious it's going to get. You see? That's how serious it's going to get, man. Man, it's going to get crazy out here. It's going to get crazy out here, man. Especially here in America, because like I said, this is already going on in a lot of other places. This is already going on. It's already happening. So with that being said, when it comes here to America, it's going to hit this place the worst. The Lord is saving the worst for last. America, man. The Lord is saving the worst for last. He's saving the best for the worst. So, hey, you just got to sit back and wait. And Lord willing, may the Spirit be with us. Because, you know, hey, I know a lot of us are already feeling the squeeze, man. We're already feeling it. Well, hey, just hold on. Akim Akwaf. All right, to hopefully elect out there, man, because it's gonna get tough. But the difference is going to be the Spirit of Yahweh Shem Shai being with us, and not these people. You see, so hopefully this is edifying. Giving all praises to Yahweh by Shem Shai. Shalom to you. Hopefully, elect into the next one.